Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Raquel, and I run the customer success team at Prima Republic. Some of you may know me as the host of CMO Peer Talks, which is what is bringing you today's webinar. I am hoping we're all recovered, whether there was a couple hours of jet lag between or just too much partying, but we're all back from Vegas, where we were all at IFA's annual convention, which was a lot of fun, and it's where we all were in person after so much time. So I'm really excited to go through today and with our speakers to share what we learned the most and what we loved.
Awesome. Thank you, Raquel. Today we're going to cover the Best of IFA annual convention, unveiling the top lessons. So this is a little bit about Raquel. I don't know if you want to do a little intro of you.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I run our customer success team. I'm the host of CMO Peer Talks. We have been really successful over the past year in growing the community, where we are over a few hundred members in our community. And if you go to the next slide, Dawn, you'll be able to see that as well. This is the #1 community where we bring together marketers from the franchise industry. So this is specifically built for the franchise community, where we're able to share peer-to-peer feedback and tech news, stories, trends, and ask questions from one another. And we were able to take this community that we have. For those that for those of you that aren't involved in it already, you can see via this QR code. But if we go to the next slide, you can see how we navigated in IFA. So we held our first offline meetup, which was absolutely fantastic. I know, Mark, I saw you there. We were really just growing the presence of our CMO Peer Talks community, and we addressed some of the leading issues or ideas facing our marketers right now. We talked a lot about ChatGPT. We talked about how to recession-proof your business and what the global state of the economy means for you as a franchise. And you can see from Ira, from Marcy and Jennifer, some feedback that they gave us about our meetups. So definitely join our community because we will share any and all information about what is upcoming, as well as, again, share recordings and information like that. So our first meetup was a success. To be honest, we were a little afraid no one was going to show up because it was the day after Fran Jam, and we know how crazy that got. But we're really excited that we blew the attendance out of the water, and we, I think, had even double our registrations, which is really lucky. So thank you, everyone who joined, and thank you even more those who joined a little, maybe under the weather after Fran Jam. I really appreciated it. So for the last you'll hear of me for today, before I pass it to our amazing host, Dawn, just a little bit about Prima Republic, again, the company behind the CMO Peer Talks community and the webinar today. We are a local marketing intelligence platform specifically built for franchise. Everything we do is franchise crazy, franchise centric, where we're helping franchises grow on search and social. So you can scan this QR code, try it out. We have a lot of really great team members ready to answer any questions you have. And we're really proud of the growth that we've had as an organization as well. So with that, I will pass it formally over to Dawn, who can take over.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Just a little bit about myself, Dawn Abamondi. I am the VP of Marketing and Brand Development at SMB Franchise Advisors, a newly minted C.F.E. I'm really excited that we had that graduation this year. And I've been in franchising since, the 1990s, working in brand development, working with large brands on the franchisor side from 1,000 locations, and then as small as 35. Became a franchisee with my husband for 5 years, and then moved over to the supplier side. I sit on the Women's Franchise Committee at the national level, and I've been the co-chair of the Women's Franchise Network in the Philadelphia market since 2018. So I am excited to introduce to you our panel, and I will start with Allie. Take it away, Allie.
Sure. Thanks, Dawn. Hi, everyone. I'm Allie Kraus, also a C.F.E as of last IFA. And I'm the VP of Marketing at Benetrends Financial. I've been here just about 9 months now. I don't know where the time has gone. I was previously with a franchisor and I moved to the supplier side a little over a year ago. So excited to have knowledge on both sides in marketing, but I always like to say in marketing, it's pretty much the same wherever you go, right? So supplier, franchisor, regardless, happy to be here and excited to hear from everyone today on their takeaways at IFA, because most of you I didn't see.
Great. So Mark, I know you and Allie didn't get a chance to talk at IFA, so why don't you introduce yourself to everyone?
Yeah, you bet. I'm Mark Montini. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Premium Service Brands. We are one of the growing number of home services portfolio companies. We have 9 brands, approximately 450 franchise owners that operate about 1,200 territories all across the U.S., as I said, in 9 different service areas serving homeowners. Previous to this, I was CMO at Tropical Smoothie Cafe and Floor Coverings International. And previous to that, I actually served the franchise industry for about 7-8 years on the supplier side, offering sort of fractional CMO support and a marketing technology platform to emerging franchisors between 25 and up to about 400 units.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us today, Mark. And Danielle, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello, thanks for having me. I'm Danielle Yuthas. I'm the Vice President of Marketing for SpeedPro. SpeedPro is in a unique position because we're both a franchisor and we're a supplier. We work in large format printing. We're completely B2B. We have about 124 locations in the US. And I've been with SpeedPro almost going to be at 5 years here this summer.
Awesome. Thank you, Danielle. And Bill, why don't you introduce everyone and tell us a little bit about Ballard?
Hey, y'all. Bill DiPaola, Chief Operating Officer for Ballard Brands. We're a portfolio of brands. We have a bunch of different brands under our umbrella. We primarily franchise 3 of them. We have obviously PJ's Coffee of New Orleans. We have our World of Wings and our new concept that we are launching, Buena Onda, which is the fast casual taco concept from Iron Chef Jose Garces, who is our Chief Culinary Officer. We have about now totaling a little under 300 locations in 30 states and 3 countries. We are a franchisor, a franchisee of our own brands, and a supplier. We have our own roasting facility here in New Orleans, where we roast all of the coffee that we serve in all of our locations. And we certainly have a lot of fun doing it. In fact, sometimes, quite a bit of fun. Raquel, I was not able to be with you after Fran Jam, not because I was,
I think we lost Bill's connectivity.
We lost him at a time.
There at Fran Jam, which was a lot of fun, but after, oh no, my internet connection.
We did. We lost you for a second.
Oh, terrible.
You at the best part of your story too, the punchline, Bill.
I know I didn't make it, Raquel, because I was at Fran Jam and then rode the mechanical bull and ended up dancing till about 2 a.m. and then ran the 5K it was like at 6 a.m. Went with a few of our friends and did that and had a really good time doing it. But I don't suggest everybody run a 5K after partying until 2 a.m, but I enjoyed it.
There you go. And you didn't get lost. I heard some of the people lost the front runners and then they didn't make a turn when they were supposed to and ended up doing like a
5 miles.
4.2 mile. Yeah.
So I placed 6th. And when I tell you, I have the video too to prove it. I was there. I was like that front running group. I was just behind them, and I was working every last muscle to keep up with them. Every bit of me was there. But it was fun.
Awesome. All right. So since we started talking a little bit about IFA and our highlights from the convention, I want to go ahead and start with Allie. Since she kicked us off, and then we'll go around in the order that we had, and then I'll go last.
Well, I missed the memo. I thought we were still at IFA, guys. I have my Benetrends shirt on. I am still wearing my name tag, which was glued to me for many days, but I'm back in Baltimore and sorry I missed the memo. I will take this off. However, if you're listening to this webinar and you would like to add some flair to my banner, I would proudly wear your brand. I was telling the folks here earlier, I thought that I was going to be a trendsetter, but I was actually the only one doing my office space trend. So with that, I think one of the things I wanted to talk about today, which I actually heard at a roundtable, I think one of the biggest aha moments I had was that the IFA is actually in the process. They've kind of started it. There's more to be built out, but they launched the IFA Academy. So I'm not sure if those of you on this call have heard it, but there is a brand new catalog of all sorts of events and learnings on the IFA's website that you actually don't even have to be a member to take part in. It's really cool. There's free tracks. You can actually go through it to track your C.F.E. So I recently logged in. As soon as I got home from IFA, I logged into the back end of our IFA account. I went to the Academy button, and it actually immediately, just based on my name and email, knew where my C.F.E. was being tracked, how many courses had been resubmitted for that renewal process. And it just made it such a simple way of tracking that, because for those of you that have been through the C.F.E. program, you probably know that you have to keep that little Excel sheet somewhere in your personal files, updated every year until you return it. But this new educational platform that IFA is launching, called the IFA Academy, actually has it tracked for you. And it's really simple to do. I did go through and click though into marketing because I was excited just personally for some tracks, and there aren't yet any marketing tracks in there, but there are plenty of items in there already for you to browse. And this was just a really cool, oh my gosh, why haven't I heard of this yet moment that I had with some amazing other individuals at a roundtable I was at. So I wanted to share it today if you haven't checked that out yet. Very cool LMS system to browse through and take those courses.
Great reminder. For those of us who went through the C.F.E. in the past, I think they'll be pleasantly surprised with the new Learning Academy. So like you said, keeping track of your credits offline was kind of complicated. So Mark, what were your aha moments and highlights you want to share with everyone today?
Yeah, the first one is I'm excited Ali got that. So Sandy is relatively new to IFA, but she's the one that's really led that charge with an incredible team at the IFA to revamp the learning. So I'm glad it was noticed, and I'm glad you were on there. It was very, very happy to hear that there's success there, because I do think it's next level. And Ali, I'm working on the marketing content. We're trying to leverage it in and get it prioritized. So we should have some marketing content up there here before too long. I had a couple, if it's all right, I'll share them real quickly, but I have to start with the caveat that the people who know me know that I am a challenger guy who operates at 40,000 feet. So most of my takeaways are always about what can we do better, and typically tend to be more strategic. I like to share with my team that I'm always happy but never satisfied, so they don't think that everything I talk about is negative. It's just always an opportunity to get better. So there were a couple takeaways I had. Number one, which I think was incredibly important, and regardless of where you sit in the franchise world, something we really need to lean into, is how real the threat is to franchising as a business model. Early from the get-go at IFA, I think they landed that very well, that if we are not careful, 10 to 15 years, franchising may not exist, or if it does exist, certainly won't exist in the way it does today, that allows all of us to go out and on a regular basis change people's lives by the work that we do and allow them to create real wealth. That there truly are people who are actively and very well funded running campaigns to make sure that we don't have that opportunity. And I think that's going to really drive the importance of marketing in the franchise industry. Because at the end of the day, if you look at the IFA and the work that they do, it's all about the brand of franchising. That's what they own. And the attack is on the brand of franchising. There's obviously operational components, there's obviously political and policy components, but the attack is on the brand of franchising and what franchising represents. And so hopefully we'll be able to have even more influence as marketers to be able to help move that brand more to the forefront of the American conscience, so that we can protect the incredible business model that we all work so hard to advance, to create opportunities for thousands and thousands and thousands of people who might not otherwise have them. So that was probably my biggest takeaway. The second one for me was walking the trade show. So I walked the trade show, and this is one where a lot of my exhibitor partners are going to be angry. So I'm expecting my email box and text messages to get filled up. I walk the trade show every year with one or two things that I need to buy for our franchises. But the main reason I walk is to see what is it that's being brought into franchising that I'm not aware of, that I need to lean into because I may have missed it or I didn't see it coming. And I can say without a doubt, there was zero innovation in the exhibit hall this year, and that concerns me. You walk the entire exhibit hall, you see a lot of good, solid providers, many of which have innovated their product offerings, but there was nothing in the exhibit hall that made me say, wow, I hadn't thought about it that way. I hadn't thought about that. And it's not because I'm smart. I steal other people's ideas. It's because for some odd reason, innovation isn't at the core of what we're doing. And I don't know if it's that the innovative companies have given up on franchising, which is concerning, or what it is, but it was really surprising to me how there weren't any big new vendor partners in the exhibit hall saying, here's how we win 3, 5, 10 years down the road. And that to me is something that we can always improve on. And then the last one I'll give you is ChatGPT. I'm a little bit of a contrarian on this. But I walked away from IFA believing that we believe ChatGPT is going to solve every problem that ever existed, not only in franchising, but in the world. And I really would say pump the brakes from a marketing perspective, because if we turn ChatGPT loose to solve every imaginable problem, I think we're going to wake up in 6-9 months and be reeling back in all these new and big problems that we created. I think it's an awesome tool. I think we definitely lean into it. We definitely say, how do we use it to innovate it? But I believe that like many of the other shiny silver objects that have been introduced over the last years, especially in tech and AI, I think there's a risk if we don't do it responsibly and think through how does it create problems 9, 12, 18, 24 months down the road when we solve the problems that we're dealing with today. So those are my 3, meant to be more challenging on purpose, not necessarily negative. I emailed a couple people. It was the best IFA I've ever been to. And I'm the old guy on the call, so I've been to a bunch of them. I've been to them on a supplier side and on a franchisor side. Best IFA that I've ever been to. But I really do think some serious ahas that in an industry we need to embrace. And as leaders in the marketing industry or in the franchise industry, we as marketers really need to push to the forefront of the conversation.
Excellent, Mark. Thank you so much. I am going to turn to Danielle first. Next.
Well, of course, a highlight for me was one of our franchisees, Eric Lazard, our Chicago Loop Location 1 Franchisee of the Year. And it was a huge achievement for him. He said it was the pinnacle achievement of his career. And so those are the kinds of wins that's why we're here and seeing the impact on that individual franchisee in that location, especially after struggling so much during the pandemic in the Chicago market. So that was definitely a highlight for us, being able to have a franchisee there, especially for the second year in a row winning franchisee of the year with such a smaller B2B type brand. So that was really important for us. And then just some of the aha moments, I think a lot of it is in between conversations when you're networking and when you're at Fran Jam and at the hotel bar and all these kind of things where you're catching up with friends you haven't seen since last IFA and you're learning what they're doing, what vendors they're working with, how they're approaching things differently, what's changed for them, and just getting those nuggets and building those relationships year to year to year is where I usually get the most direct value out of those things. And Mark, the ChatGPT thing, I thought it was going to be less of a big deal, but I even had somebody on the franchisee side said they're starting to write legal contracts using it. So that gave me some cautionary tips around ChatGPT as well.
What could go wrong with that?
Not at all. Okay, nothing at all. Bill, you are up.
So first of all, I agree with the sentiment that this was a fantastic IFA. This was really good. I saw a lot of new faces. That struck me. There were a significant amount of new people you would see consistently at roundtables. And that in and of itself also surprised me, because there were sessions of that were going on where there was no room. I mean, there was simply no room at the inn. In an operations panel I was in with some real experts, people enough to where people were sitting on the floor, people were like lying down, people were sitting on other people's laps. I mean, it was intense in that people were that engaged and interested. So I noticed that right away. And engaged and interested was also something I picked up on something you said, Mark, about the IFA's clear signal to there is legislation going around everywhere to attack the model that is franchising. I see it in a certain vein. So my mother is born and raised in Guatemala City, and I'm an immigrant's kid in that way. And I look at how franchising creates the opportunity for people like my family and family members of mine to be able to make their own generational wealth, and to see how hard we have to work to get someone to understand that. It's too hard. There's clearly a messaging gap. And you're right, there are a lot of people who see this as an opportunity for their agenda. It's not about furthering franchising, because the other side, and I talk with them a lot, will tell us so often that they're trying to help franchise. They actually think they're going to make the model of franchising better. And I cannot possibly think of a time when someone said, yeah, let's get the government in to make it better. Like that's just going to go great. So, it is going to be exactly what you would think. And so, those things struck me. And then, the largest thing that hit me the most was how it was very clear that we were starving for being around each other. And what it made me realize, and I'm still, I can still see in the through line of my own businesses, that this still matters. The ability to commune, to be together, whatever it is that we're doing still matters. All of this stuff that we have that distracts us, from doing what it is that we should be doing. This, as much as we think we're that different, we're not. We need this. And I think if we, as I have seen us treat each other like we need each other, we have tended to get better results, because that's when we're coming at some of this legislation and some of the problems, the real large problems that we have, more as a community, and instead of coming at it as individuals.
Bill, where I really felt that was at the new member reception.
Yeah.
I've actually never gone. Did you go to that this year?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. So I had never been to it, and I went this year. We were sponsors of it. Rocco opened the event, and sitting at that table with brand new people who I felt that they were at this like such emotional state of their new brand, right? They're telling us all about their new ops guide. And it was cool to sit and listen to that emotional connection to a brand that someone new had. But it was the perfect opportunity to find those moments for those of us more veteran in the industry to be able to share with them the importance of the work that the IFA is doing, and how it's more than just we're sitting in this room with wine at our table and talking about the C.F.E program, but here's those additional valuable pieces as to why this community is the way it is, and how important it is that we all stand together and we pass that down. So I felt that connection too. I'm glad you brought that up, and I felt it the most that night at that new reception.
I really agree with you on that. I think it's incumbent upon us that have been here for a while to take that extra step forward. I actually I was inspired when I watched people like Michael Seid, people like Shelley Sun, and they just take that extra step. Catherine Munson taking that extra step to stick a hand out and say, hey, to a new person, and just make themselves known and break that barrier, that fear of, look, when they're looking at y'all, they're looking like, oh, these are big people. Like, these people, right? They clearly know
the celebrities in franchising, and they're personable, and they're ready to help. They have always reached out to help people if asked, and it is to take the initiative to do that. That's awesome. one of my favorite aspects of IFA is always the annual leadership conference that the Women's Franchise Committee puts on, because of the willingness of a brand to really open up their history and their problems and share it openly. And so I always love that. And I have to say, though, this year that my favorite session was the Emerging Franchisor Bootcamp, which talked about like bringing, for a brand that's under 100 or under 75 units, to bring their problem or their concern that's affecting their brand, rather than listening to another brand that had a problem and then resolved it within, you know, their own confines of their team and their suppliers, but for the feedback and the open sharing that the people at the tables, that, you know, at my table, there were 6 different brands that were there who were all willing to ask a hard question and say, this is a problem that we're having. And then for everybody to be able to, you know, just share openly their suggestions for how to help their literal competitors in franchising. I mean, they're not direct competitors, but, you know, we're all competing for franchisees at some point. And so I think that's now it's a tie, right? Those 2 sessions were things that I will continue to participate in and help to expand and hopefully bring new people in to both of those activities. So, all right, we will go to the next question. What big ideas or innovative plans will you launch after attending the conference? And Mark, I'm actually, because of how you talked about the aha moments, I'm going to ask you this question first.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, you know, the good side of my wander through the exhibit hall is that I left thinking, wow, there's a tremendous opportunity to take market share if we innovate. And for the last really 12 to 18 months, we've hunkered down and focused on the fundamentals in preparation for the recession. So we've had the narrative at Premium Service Brands for about 18 months, recession ready. And as part of that, it was hunkering down to make sure everyone understands what are the fundamentals that will get your business through the recession. We originally thought it was going to be about 6 months ago. Now I have no idea when it's going to get here, but I think it's going to get here. But in doing that, it kind of hit me upside the head that maybe we had pulled back a little bit from innovation. And so now that we have that foundation in place, I'm really going to get more active in going out and again, looking at other industries and saying, what are they doing to innovate? Because just from a competitive perspective, I see it as a greater advantage than we probably ever had before, because it seems like innovation in some ways has stalled. And again, I don't mean that as a negative. It's just not relevant. And I know there's a lot of innovation going on. I know, or prevalent, not relevant. I know there's a lot of innovation going on. I know a lot of brands are doing great things, but it seems like there's an opportunity for us to get ahead if we start looking 2 and 3 years down the road again. And maybe that was something that COVID drove, is that we all started looking next week, next month, and there's an opportunity now that we're through COVID to reset our focus on how am I going to win 3 and 5 years down the road, because the next 3 months, I feel like we're in pretty good shape. So that was one of the big ideas or the big takeaways for me is as someone who's always thrived looking at how do we win 5 years from now and 3 years from now, to realize that I've probably reeled myself back intentionally, unintentionally, I don't know. But there's a real opportunity to grab market share by trying to get ahead, especially when we look at getting ahead on the side of the consumer journey. So that's one of the biggest takeaways for me, and one of the biggest plans that we'll be launching is going out and trying to find those innovative ideas to stack on top of the foundation we've really solidified over the last 12 to 18 months.
Awesome, Mark. Thanks for sharing that. Danielle, I'm going to go to you next.
Great. I was on the panel, What's Next in Digital with Mark. Mark, you did a fantastic job leading that. And on that panel, we talked a lot about data. Abby Lee stressed the importance of data and what they're doing at RE/MAX. We talked a lot about Google Analytics, GA4 coming out, and analytics that need to happen on that side. And it was really relevant for me because one of our top initiatives for the year is based on data and being more transparent and open with sharing the data and connecting all of our data points together to give that visibility for franchisees. So as we're having all these conversations, there was a roundtable that was about a debate between building your own technology to host that, this data and this reporting versus, using a software as a service platform and sort of renting the platform. And so, you can see very clearly that there are a lot of other people that are at the exact pain point and challenge that you're at and can help you through these decision-making processes. So it was really helpful to me to sit through and get that information right at the point where we are at a critical point where we need to make that decision as well.
We just had that conversation with a new client this morning. They're using something, it's gotten more expensive. They're wondering if they should invest in and create their own, brand specific proprietary platform. So
that technical debt cost, can really add up over time too.
Right. Yeah. There's so many things that can help the franchisees be more efficient, but at what cost is that to their, to their bottom line?
If you don't mind my jumping in on that.
Go ahead. Yeah, absolutely.
That piece for me, when I think of what is my teams and my focus, what is our daily lives is how do we get the minute to minute, hour to hour, day to day, how day part by day part, how do we get that done? When we talk a lot with our franchisees and all of our brands about our tech stacks, I started to learn very quickly. I had made some significant mistakes, and my largest mistake was not listening. If I have one of the things I constantly work on myself is having more humility, being more open to listening to other people's ideas. And what I noticed about our tech stack was I wasn't doing that well enough to where I basically created like a tech tool belt. We had this, we had this, and this, and all these different things to solve. And what we realized was these weren't impactful and meaningful systems. The franchisees just weren't using them. They didn't see the value and they didn't spend the time on them. So once I started listening more and started speaking with my franchisees and my teams more, I was starting to hone in better on what is going to actually move the needle, and frankly, what they're going to actually do. Like there's a lot of things they're just not going to do it. And so pushing it, it's just not going to help. But once I created, a team that really looked in and said, what's going to drive the most value, and we got rid of other stuff, that's when we started to get our tech stack more in line. It's not perfect, but we're definitely more in line now.
Right. Okay. Thanks for sharing that, Bill. I think that was excellent insight. What is we'll stay with you. So what is your big idea or innovative plan for post IFA?
To that end, one of the larger things that I noticed was that there is becoming an increasing focus on something that means a lot to me, the franchise business consultant, the field consultant. So there hasn't really been at IFA, as I've seen it, a tremendous amount of focus on specifically the franchise business consultant. So I really like to develop and cultivate talent. I try as hard as I can to promote from within. And many of the franchise business consultants that we have promoted from within the ranks of our businesses. But there's a lot of gaps that they have that I'm supposed to put the team together to fill in and supply. Well, what I've noticed is that there are companies now that are forming themselves around the idea of being able to fill that gap without me or having to dedicate individual resources to doing just that. I can reinforce that. So there's some companies that are out there doing that. That's going to be my big takeaway. Paring away a lot of the technology in order to come up with what are the real KPIs, what matters most in each conversation we're having with our franchisees, and how to teach my business consultants how to actually properly consult their franchisees by using a service of that kind. There's a one called AC Inc. It's Angela Cote. She specifically focuses in on franchise business consultants and on the consulting game, and that's probably going to be one of my key takeaways.
All right, thank you so much, Bill. Allie, what are your thoughts?
So I don't have franchisees with what I do, but I'm loving listening to what you all are sharing. I think my biggest takeaway from innovative idea for Benetrends, at least, was more on an emotional level for the way we talk about our brand and what we do to our clients. So I don't know if, I'm assuming most of you saw the keynote. John Payton was there. He talked a lot about empathy. And while this is not new and you hear it in the Simon Sinek books, it made me stop and really think about what we were doing, because the timing of IFA was kind of an interesting overlap with some changes in those innovative ways of thinking that we're experiencing at Benetrends. Right before IFA, we did a really fascinating brand sprint with Ingrid from Stay in Your Lane. And our leadership team came together and we spent many hours really digging into our brand. And what hit me with that was that in January, we celebrated our 40th year. And everybody at Benetrends is really great about knowing what we do and how we do it. But listening to John talk about empathy and how people need to feel that you care about them, whether it's your franchisees or it's your system and your team that you're leading. For us, it's caring about people and their money, right? So it's a big change in their lives. And I'm coming home from IFA really focusing on the emotional storytelling of what we do, and remembering that we're not just this transactional product for franchisees. We are a very emotional side to a decision that someone makes in their lives. And I think there's stories to tell there. I think there's stories to tell that we're changing franchisees' trajectory for their future, for their families, for the American dream. And it's special to me. It gives me the goosebumps to talk about it. And while I went into IFA knowing that that was our biggest opportunity and it was our biggest way of being innovative and talking differently and using that different type of voice, I'm coming home feeling even more empowered by it. And I love to tell people I'm on a franchise high after these events. I even bought the URL for that I haven't done anything with, but I have it from GoDaddy. Being on a franchise high is, I think, a way of kind of reinvigorating what we do once we leave being around all of these people. And you guys are spot on. We need that, right, Bill? Like, being around these people in the industry, it gives you a reminder that your competitors can be your friends in real life. And sharing that with new people to this industry is what made me fell in love with it. And now to be able to be someone that passes that down and uses empathy with new brands and emerging brands, but also with our clients, it's a very special way of collaborating. And I'm excited for what the future has for us and anyone else that took that same message away. So thank you, John, for reminding me how important that was.
Thank you, Allie, and reminding us. You know, as each of you have talked, I think I've changed my big idea. But one of the things that I brought back is that I participate so much with Women's Franchise Committee. We have the Open for Opportunity Roadshow that came through Philadelphia. You know, I hear the IFA message often, and a lot of people don't. And so I think that was my big takeaway, is that we need to, those of us who are in the industry and close to it, need to continue to share what is being done. It's, marketing 101 is how many times do you need to tell your consumer the message in order for them to hear it. So Mark, I appreciate that you brought that up, and there were, the 5 takeaways. I took a picture of that when Charlie was on stage, and, they were things that I know are problems for the industry, but our emerging brands are not members of IFA yet. They're not even done with their FDD. They're still going through the process, and we're helping to educate them. So that's one of the things that we've started to integrate into our social share, and we'll continue to do that, is educating our clients and those people who are not at, different levels of the industry, so that they can continue to learn. So I will leave it at that. I think that we might have some questions in the from the audience, and I will let Raquel or Andrew come on to see. Either that, or we have a question from Danielle for Bill, which we can answer first while we're waiting. Danielle asks, she's curious if you see it's important for business consultants to be up to speed and supportive of marketing initiatives, or do you think the business consultants are primarily supporting the emotional and operational side, and it's sufficient to support them to contact the marketing team?
So I was direct messaging Danielle on that subject. I cannot tell you how badly I failed when we didn't work together, and how when we did. I mean, we just went through 5 different back-to-back openings for grand openings and hitting record sales. And it has everything to do with the work that we were doing with the marketing department. So we have the local direct local team, like the guerrilla marketing teams. This young lady, Alexander Davidson, Christian Peterson, they've been with the brand for a long, long time. They work directly on the local store marketing aspects. They work through what is a monthly marketing calendar with the franchisees, and they do it with the franchise business consultant. So we'll use FranConnect to put together something called playbooks, where basically it's everybody has a different, part of the play. Like, someone's a running back, someone's a quarterback, someone's a wide receiver, someone's a blocker, but basically they get all of their assignments. Everybody moves on the assignment. It's SMART gold, so it's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound, and all of it comes together to be a way that we measure our campaigns. And for sure, the work together with the franchise business consultants working with marketing has definitely elevated our game. I credit that working relationship as to we've had multiple year-over-year same-store sales increases of over 10%, and it's because of that relationship.
Thanks, Bill. That's great to see that, because especially with such small marketing teams, when we don't get enough support on the BC side, it can make it really challenging.
You can't do your work well if we're not doing that. We have to be there. We have more touch. It's the relationship that we share together on how we communicate messaging to the franchisees that makes the messaging deeper. It makes it more effective. It makes us more cohesive as a brand, and how we deliver the through line of the brand. How do we deliver our brand promise? I really think that's done through those relationships.
Okay. So the while we're waiting for some questions to come into the chat, we want to just announce the next webinar coming up, and that is your franchise really customer focused? So I think that's an interesting tie into even the franchise business consultant and how they interact with the franchisees. That is scheduled for March 22nd. So 2 weeks from today, and anyone who's on the call today can register using the QR code. And then here's everyone who was on the call today. So you can also connect with them directly on LinkedIn. So I will definitely leave this slide up for a bit so that everybody can go through that process. In the meantime, if you do have a question for our panel, that would be fabulous. I don't know if anybody else wants to go ahead and chime in with one more thought while we're waiting.
Hey, Don, I've got one. And you're oh, sorry. You want to go, Bill?
No, I was only going to laugh at, like, everybody's picture is so nice. Mine looks like I'm a Land's End catalog model. It's terrible.
Hey, but Land's End's catalog models get paid well too, Bill. So I mean, it makes no difference.
It's your side hustle.
Good. Exactly. So I was curious. It was something that I had kind of on my second level, walking away from IFA. But the last slide about the Web Punch webinar coming up on the 22nd really triggered it in my mind, and I think it's an important discussion to have, which is when we talk about customer journey, and I think most people understand Web Punch is about as good as it gets when it comes to managing that, both for employees as well as for consumers. But when we talk about that journey that our brands deliver, who owns that journey in today's world? Because 5 years ago, it was almost definitively it's operations. Operations owns the customer journey. But I am of the belief that consumers are so empowered now through 24/7, 365 access to the web and the proliferation of social media, that actually the experience we deliver is what defines our brand. So it's hard for me now to define our brand if we're not delivering the right experience. And so I'm a big advocate and a big believer that actually consumer journey and customer experience should be transitioning to marketing out of operations. And I know it's a fun topic to stir the pot about, but I would be really curious to hear what anybody else thinks in terms of where does that customer journey truly lie in today's world.
Mark, that's so interesting you brought that up. We just launched a new client, and so it was tremendously interesting for me to start the research and see the difference in their imaging and their presentation of all of their products on their website and Facebook, and then opening up Instagram where all of their consumers have loaded their particular photos of their products, and the dramatic difference between the image quality and the presentation. And so I think if I were head of the brand, I'd be having a little mini heart attack at some of the photos that are being posted that now represent your brand. I mean, there are thousands and thousands of images that are consumer generated content that don't fit the way you would want to present your product, and you have absolutely no control over it. So, I don't know how you solve that problem, but you can't ask your customers to take better pictures or not to take a picture after they've already, eaten half of their sandwich, or, put lipstick on the cup of their coffee, or used a product halfway and now you can't even read the label or anything like that. But I'm sure that there are some other thoughts from the panel on that, but definitely an interesting topic to tune into.
I could definitely talk on that one. Because I feel so strongly about the teamwork aspect of this relationship. I feel in many ways, first of all, Mark, I think you're spot on. And I'm a chief operating officer, and talking about the customer journey, customer experience. I think you're totally right, because there should be a pairing there. It's like marketing is the architect and operations is the general contractor. The architect sets the vision, the structure. We got to go out and build that journey. And if we're not following marketing's plans, we're building something entirely different. We have to work together. So that relationship building and understanding what the plan is, communicating that plan out each day. I find that unless we continually communicate that plan out, where we lose our way. I have lost my way because I wasn't paying enough attention, and I don't know. I will point the finger this way a whole lot, because frankly, there's plenty to point at, because without that collaboration, and that's what my role really should be, is to develop and guide that. You'll never get the marketing push you want. Every effort gets muted, and I've always said it. Nothing kills a business like a great promotion, because if you get everybody geeked up to the idea of coming in to do something, and then operations falls flat, now you're working twice as hard to bring them in. So the marketer's job is like, well, we'll get them again. Well, what do you mean get them again? You fumbled the ball. How are we going to do this together? We didn't do this together. You're just telling me bring them over, and that's not how this works. We got to work together to do it.
Yeah, I completely agree with that too. I mean, I would love to have the customer journey under marketing, but if, at the execution level, if it's not coming through, or if it's different than what we're saying that it is, sometimes we have an ideal of this is what we want it to be, and then there's a disconnect between what's actually happening. And so it's really imperative for those to be synced together and led from a central leader, whether that's the CFO or however that looks like. It's also really difficult if you have multiple customer journeys, and you have all kinds of different customers buying all kinds of different things and all these different journeys. And then if you only have the budget to support a portion of that, where do you allocate those dollars and how do you prioritize that? And that can really, I think, only be done from a wholesale operational level and in tandem with close partnership with franchisees at the same time.
Right.
It also makes me think about that bridge that's between the franchise development marketing and your consumer marketing, right? Because we're seeing groups and businesses everywhere. My previous franchisor, I ran franchise development marketing, and we had a completely different marketing team for consumer. And at the time, 4 years ago or so, when we decided to make that change, it was crazy. Like no one was doing that. And we were a very small emerging brand. So to see more and more brands also separating that consumer marketing team from that franchise development team, a lot of times you'll see two different stories being told from that marketing perspective, right? So Mark, I'm with you. The marketer in me wants to have kind of more control over how that narrative is being written, but it's up to Bill's team to implement it and be the coach of that team there, right? So I think it's important that we also remember that that bridge can get too far separated between the story you're telling to those franchisees and those potential clients that you're bringing into your system, and then how's it actually being implemented with boots on the ground in terms of how your franchisees are actually running their businesses. So that could be a podcast for another day, but throwing
For
that
sure.
that those stories get skewed pretty quickly. And so I think we need to be careful when we work together that we're not losing the story we're telling our franchisees when we're bringing them in, and then what we're actually implementing.
Absolutely. And choosing the right franchisees to join the brand. So, all right, everyone, another podcast. We could talk all day, but I do want to thank everyone for tuning in and appreciate Promo Republic for hosting us today. And you can reach them at hello@promorepublic.com, and definitely follow on LinkedIn, and we will see you next time. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.